What's up everybody? Today's video is a video on measuring tools. I'm doing a video on all the measuring tools I use rather than just each individual measuring tool, because it's like making a video on just the speed square. That would be a sort of a boring video. But we're going to talk about all these tools, from tape measures and pencils all the way to the interesting things like that. But before I get to that, check out my Patreon and Instagram. They're in the description. And thank you to Elizabeth Day Rush for becoming my second Patreon. Thank you, and now let's get to talking about measuring tools. So we're going to start with the simple things. Marking implements. Let me just move this camera out a bit. That's better. So, I use pencils because I mainly work with wood, and I use these pencils. They're just a standard, well, I actually don't know if they're a standard, but they're an HB pencil. They've got the regular tip, and I like that because, one, you can make a nice fine mark, and also you can just sharpen them with a normal pencil sharpener rather than having to have the appropriate pencil sharpener for these. These guys work alright, but you have to have the special sharpener, and that's hard to locate around here. And also the leads seem to break off quite easily in these. The leads do break off in these too, but that's normally once you've used them for a while and they get down to only about that long, because by that point you've put stuff on top of them and you've dropped them and you've thrown them around and such. I always keep a regular ballpoint pen around just because sometimes you need to write on paper. I also have, they aren't Sharpies, but they're sort of like Sharpies. I have permanent markers. These are mainly for metal, black for like galvanized and shiny metals, blue for steel, and then I also have a non-permanent. I'm not sure why I have a non-permanent. Not sure what it's for. I also use chalk. This is blacksmith chalk. It's what I use for when I'm marking metal. It works well. I don't think it snaps very easily, and you can see the mark because it's white. Also, for more delicate steel work, you can use a scribe. I think you can also use this on wood. I don't think I've ever used this one, maybe once. It's a Facom, and I haven't used it. Maybe one day I'll talk more thoroughly about it on Patreon. Then there's this, which is a pencil that sort of has a longer snout. This is nice because you can clip it onto this part onto your belt and then just put your pencil in if you aren't wearing a tool belt. And the pencil sharpener is right here. This is a Lyra. The only thing is that we've never located replacement leads for it. The leads in it are hold on. .8 millimeters in diameter. Like I said, we've never located leads this size, so if anybody knows where we can get leads for this, please let me know, because it would be nice to buy replacement leads. And then also there's this. This again is a Lyra, but this is a long nose sort of idea marker. The thing about this though is that, I'll give you exact measurements here. You only get about 18 1.8 centimeters before of it only being 2.5 millimeters diameter before it goes up to being 4.5 millimeter diameter. So you can't really go through a 40 by 60 that you have a small pilot hole and mark where you need to drill in the wall. And I have used the long nose markers from Lee Valley, but they tend to dry up after only like 15 uses. So they're pretty much essential for when you're trying to mark through a piece of wood where you want to drill in the wall, but they're a bit of a nuisance to use. So that's it for marking tools. Now I'll talk about tape measures. All my tape measures are 5 meters long. I mainly use the 25 mil wide, and of course they're metric. I do kind of like the 19 millimeter wide 5 meters. I have a few of those. These Setton tape measures you get for free when you spend a certain amount of money at Setton, so that's why I have so many of them. And then also I have these tape measures. I have 2 of them. These are Magnuson or something. They're Brico Depot's in-house brand. The thing about these though is that they have markings on the back too, which is useful. Also, I have this Dexter tape measure that has a magnet on the end. The magnet's handy if you're working with metal until you stick it in a pile of shavings and then it gets dirty. But it is handy to have the magnet on the end. And as for the lanyards on the back of the tape measures, I'm not really a fan. I'd much rather just use the belt clip. This thing, this triangular thing, is, don't know what you'd call it, but you put it on the end of your tape measure, basically for when you're measuring diagonally on something to see if it's square, or if you just want to know the diagonal measurement. So you put it on your tape measure. This tape measure won't work because this is too tall. You need to take it, nor will this one because of the magnets won't fit in. But these guys will work. You just put it on like that, then you just go like that, and it holds it in the corner. Or underneath this, because this, when you're measuring to this under here, your measurement's going to be off by a couple centimeters. Looks like it's about 2.5, but if you use this back here, is the bottom part. This part is the same as doing that. Also, you can turn it around and measure the inside corner, or you can use up here or down here, although this down here is not zeroed out. So you just go like that or that, and you can measure from the corner. This came from Lee Valley Tools as well, and is very useful. So if you see this, I recommend picking it up because it's only like $2 or $3 or something. And if anybody knows what you call this, please leave it down in the comment section. For any measurements that are more than 5 meters, I have this 100-foot, 30-meter tape measure. This is just a long, flexible tape measure like that, and then you wind it up. And apparently you aren't supposed to put more than 2 kgs of pressure on it, so that you keep accurate measurements. It's useful for if you're doing long measurements but don't always want to be carrying around an 8-meter tape measure. Levels. I have a 60 centimeter level and then 20 centimeter level. Both are very useful, especially the little one. You should also have like a 1.5 meter, like the big long levels. I think they're 1.5 or 1.2 meters long. But I don't have one of those yet because when I need one like that, I just borrow my dad's. But they're useful to have, the long ones. But some people don't like this one. This one is probably the most used level I have. I use this one the most. After levels, well, we can talk about rulers. Rulers are very, very important to have because sometimes you are measuring on a flat surface and it's just easier to drop the ruler on the flat surface rather than trying to use a tape measure. Also, they're great straight edges for when you're trying to mark a straight line. I have a 20 centimeter, 30 centimeter, and 50 centimeter ruler. I recommend getting all three of these and also a 1 meter ruler. I don't have a 1 meter ruler yet, but it is definitely something that I would recommend getting. You may think that you could do everything you want to do with the 20, with the 30, but sometimes it's easier to have the shorter ruler, and also sometimes you need two. Next is squares. So I don't have a lot of fancy carpentry squares. If I get carpentry squares in the future, or any new measuring tool, I will post about it on Patreon. So if you want to find out about any measuring tools I may get in the future, then go and become a Patreon member. This is the one sort of carpentry-like square I have. It's a 40 centimeter long square, and it's useful for when you want to make a nice long measurement, but as soon as you start applying pressure up here, you start losing the square ness of it. And you can do a 45 if you want. So it's a handy thing to have, and I think I only paid like 12 euros for this one. Dexter, Leroy Merlin's in-house brand, also has a 30 centimeter one, but I bought the 40. Also, I bought this Irwin combination square. You can do 90s and 45s. Also, there's a nice level in it, and there's a scribe. I got this off of Amazon.com, and they shipped it here to France. It was like 12 bucks, 12 euros to have it, to buy it and have it shipped, so it was a good purchase. But I haven't used it yet, so once I get a chance to use it, I will post about it on Patreon. And then the most useful square in my mind is the Swanson Speed Square. This one is very handy because you can put it on the edge of your wood and cut 90 degrees with your circular saw if you don't have a drop saw and you don't want to have to mark the lines each time. You just put this on the wood and pass your circular saw along it. You can also, 1 minute, I'll get a proper piece of wood. So you can just make 90 degrees like that, or say you want to mark a long line along the edge of a board. You have these little nubs here. I imagine they're every 1/8 of an inch because this is an imperial. So you just put the tip of your pencil or your scribe or whatever in that nub, and then you can just draw it along the wood. Also, if you want to make an angled cut, you have angles along the bottom. So say you want to make a 20-degree cut up here, you can either hold it and use your circular saw, or you can just measure. And what you do is you pivot up here, and then you just read these numbers along the bottom. So there's your 45. There's a 75. When you buy this thing, again, I got this off Amazon.com, and they shipped it here to France, and the price of the square was, again, like 12 euros. But when you buy this square, it comes with a little booklet on all the things you can do with it. And I haven't read everything in that booklet, but there's a lot of things you can do with this square. Also, you do have a sort of ruler measure. Like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 inches across the top. It is... Hold on. It's about 7 inches long. But yes, very, very useful, and I highly recommend getting one of these. Then, another thing that is useful to have, because the swath and speed square isn't always accurate enough, is, what are these called again? I think these are called protractors. But anyway, if you want to mark a 90, or say a 62 degree, you can just go like that, and you have a 62 degree angle. Also, it's useful for measuring angles on things like planer blades. You just put the planer blade in, and because it's sort of small, you can get the exact angle of the planer blade. I think I paid 20 euros for this. It's useful. This is an in-size. Another protractor I have is this protractor. Not sure what they call it. This one came from Lee Valley Tools. That's what it looks like. So this is a bunch of different things. You can either use it, where is it? You can either use it like this, or you can use it like this to measure the figure out the angle on things. This is very handy, but it's kind of flimsy. It snapped up here, so now it's a bit fragile. So if you're up on a roof and you're trying to make a 70-degree cut, it'd be a lot better just to use your swath and speed square than one of these. But these are useful squares to have, so I do recommend it. And this I think you can only find at Lee Valley Tools. And then there's these things, caliper measurers. These are very useful for drill bit, finding out the diameter of drill bits and such. Also, you can also find the diameter on the inside of a hole, or you can find the exact diameter of a piece of wood. These were 2 euros, and I do not at all recommend purchasing them. They're okay, I guess, but very hard to slide. Also, I don't know if the measurements are accurate. Much better off to go with one like this. This one will measure right to 0.1 millimeter. Or I have no idea what you'd call the imperial version. But this is a much nicer pair. You can slide it easily. It actually has a piece of metal here. I imagine these came from Lee Valley Tools. And I definitely recommend a pair like this. The digital, you can get digital ones. I've never used the digital ones, and I kind of prefer just having a dial, because whenever I pick this up, it's going to work. I don't have to worry if the watch batteries that are in it are still producing electricity. But this is something that if you want accurate results, you should spend a bit more than lowest common denominator. I think this one probably could have been around 30 euros, so not that much, really. And they're extremely handy for figuring out the drill bit sizes if the measurements have worn off, or if you're trying to use an imperial drill bit for your metric project. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about today is this thing. This thing is extremely useful. I know I say that about a lot of these things, but this, along with the Swanson speed square, and of course tape measures and pencils and stuff, but these two are probably the best things to have other than basic measuring stuff. So what this is, I have absolutely no idea what you call this, but it's got your millimeters along here. This is an Orion. They had 20, 25, and 30 centimeter long ones. I got the 25. So along the bottom here, has millimeters, and then you have this little 0 mark, so you can just undo that knob and slide it along. And if you want it to measure something that's, say, 3.7, you could even go 3.75 if you were careful. You push it along against the bottom edge to make sure it's square, and then tighten it, and then you just go like that on your wood, and you can either just hold it like that, or you can along the piece of wood. You can use it in metalworking too, and this particular one I have, the Orion, has some nice weight to it, and also it's nicely finished, and it's made out of thick metal rather than flimsy pletal, as I like to call it, which is questionable whether it's plastic or metal. But this is a nice one, and you can, of course, if you want to, measure 0 centimeters by doing that. But it's useful for if you have, like, not something like this, but a board that you're going to want to rip 2 centimeters off the side with a circular saw or a jigsaw or something. It's useful for that. So, it's a good tool. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, and I will see you next time.